Have you noticed something lately? You've actually handled more than you ever thought you could. You adapted. You pushed through. You kept going. And yet, there are moments when you stop and think, is it just me? Or does life feel heavier than it used to? If that question sounds familiar, this video isn't here to hype you up or sell you false optimism. It's here to explain why this feeling makes sense and why it doesn't mean you're broken. Because what many people are experiencing right now isn't a personal failure. It's a period effect. Over the past few years, we've been told that things are back to normal. The pandemic is over. The world is moving again. Opportunities are everywhere. But internally, a lot of people don't feel settled. They feel tense, restless, slightly on edge, even on good days. The economy is supposedly improving, yet people feel financially insecure. Technology keeps advancing, yet the future feels more uncertain. Information is everywhere, yet clarity feels rare. And there's a quiet thought many people share, but rarely say out loud. Everything is technically okay, but I don't feel okay. That feeling isn't weakness. It's your mind reacting to instability. The human brain needs a few basic things to feel safe. Some level of predictability, a sense that effort leads to results, and a feeling that what we're doing actually means something. Over the last decade, and especially the last few years, all three have been shaken. You can work hard and still fall behind. The rules keep changing. What worked 5 years ago doesn't guarantee anything today. And the future no longer feels like a straight line, it feels fragmented. When that happens, the brain does something very simple and very human. It stays alert, not because something is wrong with you, but because the ground doesn't feel stable. That's why so many people struggle to truly relax, why silence feels uncomfortable, why even rest can feel unproductive or guilt-ridden. It's not that you don't know how to rest. It's that your nervous system doesn't fully trust the environment anymore. What's important to understand is this. This kind of tension doesn't come from laziness or lack of motivation. It comes from living in a long transition. And transitions are historically the hardest periods for the human psyche. This isn't new. During the Industrial Revolution, people felt replaceable and disoriented. During major economic collapses, people felt that effort no longer made sense. After large-scale wars, entire generations felt like the old world was gone, but the new one hadn't arrived yet. History shows a clear pattern. Psychological distress peaks not during collapse, but during uncertain rebuilding, when the old structure no longer works and the new structure hasn't fully formed. That's where we are now. And yet, because we live in a culture obsessed with individual responsibility, this collective pressure gets internalized. If you're struggling, you're told to fix your mindset. If you're tired, you're told to optimize yourself. If you feel lost, you're told to figure it out. So people carry a systemic weight alone, while believing it's a personal flaw. That's why so many people feel lonely, even when surrounded by others. Everyone is doing fine. Everyone is handling it. But underneath, many are quietly exhausted, which leads to the hardest questions. Is this how life is now? Is it ever going to settle? Does it get better? Or is this the new normal? Here's the honest answer. No, this won't last forever. But it also won't resolve overnight. Periods like this don't end with a clean reset. They fade gradually, unevenly, with setbacks and recalibration. History doesn't give us exact timelines, but it does give us one clear lesson. The people who make it through transitions aren't the fastest, loudest, or most aggressive. They're the ones who stabilize themselves while the world reorganizes. And that changes what progress looks like. This isn't a season for massive life overhauls or dramatic reinvention. Those usually collapse under uncertainty. This is a season for smaller anchors, simple routines, controlled inputs, fewer comparisons, more internal consistency, not because you're lowering your standards, but because you're preserving your foundation. In unstable times, Small things matter more than big plans. Sleep becomes strategy. Repetition becomes strength. Consistency becomes protection. And here's the quiet realization that changes everything. You don't need to solve your entire future right now. You only need to ask one grounded question. What is one small area of my life I can keep stable, even if everything else is uncertain? That might be your health, your craft, your schedule, your thinking space. These don't look impressive from the outside, but historically, they're what carry people through. So if you felt tired lately, not just physically, but mentally, if motivation feels inconsistent, if the future feels strangely close and impossibly far at the same time, you're not failing, you're adapting. And one day, when this period is spoken about in hindsight, people will realize something important. Some were consumed by the noise, some burned out trying to outrun uncertainty, and some quietly built inner stability and came out stronger, clearer, and more grounded than before. This video exists to remind you, you're allowed to slow down, you're allowed to steady yourself, and you're allowed to move forward without rushing the answer. Sometimes progress isn't about moving faster. Sometimes it's about not collapsing while the ground is shifting.